Now, South African motorists should brace for the worst. The Russia and Ukraine invasion has led to rising oil prices. There are also fears of supply crunch as discussions of banning Russian oil continues. Now, let's speak to Reggie Sibiya. He's the CEO of Fuel Retailers Association, and he joins us now live from Germany. Thank you very much, Mr. Sibiya, for your time here on All Angles. Now, how is this likely to affect us here in South Africa? Already, our petrol price has skyrocketed to a number where people are thinking of even taking back their cars to the dealerships.
Thank you, Masejo. Let me say you are not, or we are not the only ones as South Africans. You know, as I'm sitting here in Germany, I mean, the pump price of both petrol and diesel is sitting at €2 per litre, and that is equivalent to 34 rands a litre. And obviously, as a deregulated market, their prices change, you know, every 2 to 3 hours. And it's continuing. I mean, it's now sitting at 2.15 euro. And it's all attributed to the Russia and the Ukraine war. It is really going to be a prolonged period, you know, of very expensive energy globally. Especially if there's no interventions on this current war in Russia, unfortunately. Back home is affecting our consumers big time. It's affecting retailers big time. I'm thinking here about our credit card costs, which are linked to the pump price. And these credit card costs are forever going up and we're not even reimbursed for. So it's bad news not only for consumers, is bad news for sustainability of SMMEs. And with actually our government not even listening to our cry about the reimbursement of the credit card cost. So, you know, as you know, that Russia is the third largest, you know, oil producing country and the major supplier for the European markets. This is very, very significant. And clearly it has affected all governments, you know, across the globe. If you're following the current analysis, how are the markets actually responding to this? One thing that the governments are looking at is firstly the area of releasing their reserves. And unfortunately in South Africa, we don't even have enough reserves. It's always been our biggest challenge. Let alone the strategic reserves, just even the ordinary operational storage capacity for day-to-day running of the fuel business. So we are in a serious crisis when it comes to the area of reserves, so we cannot respond to that. But also having stated that, the issue of reserves is actually not a long-term solution, as you know. Whatever has been replenished needs to be replaced at some point in time because the strategic reserves are planned for very dire and catastrophic situations. And secondly, if you look globally currently, the analysis, there's a big outcry for governments to reduce taxes in the form of fuel levies. And analysis tells us that, you know, most of the countries globally, taxes contributes over 50% of the pump price. So there is a serious outcry from consumers to say, don't only release the reserves, but also look in just reducing or taking away these taxes completely. I know that South Africa, recently we got some bit of good news about no increase on the taxes. But again, as I've always told people, that, you know, the global prices, because we are net importer, are also just as significant. So we're not even going to realize that relief that was announced by the Minister of Finance because of this now rising global prices.
All right. So, but obviously the interventions that you were talking about, banning, for instance, your oil from Russia is one of those sanctions that international countries, especially the West, is trying to impose on Russia to force them to stop the war that they've waged against Ukraine. But clearly this is not going to assist if Vladimir Putin, for instance, decides that he will not stop and he will continue with the war. It means all of us will be affected then by this fight between Russia, Ukraine and the US, essentially.
In fact, Maseko, we already are affected. And in fact, analysis says that we have not even begun to see the real impact of this. So it's the message is really that we must brace up for something very serious. If you look at the current estimates as of today in South African prices, petrol is approaching a 2 rand increase. Diesel is already approaching 3 rand increase per litre. And if this continues, I can safely, estimate that we must brace for around 5 rand or more per litre increase on both petrol and diesel. So the situation is very dire. And, even if, there is some interventions, the supply has already been interrupted, and to restore it is not also going to happen just overnight. So either way, though we're hoping that they must actually resolve this conflict as soon as possible, but even after resolving the conflict, to just restore the disruptions in supply is going to take a long time. So it is not good news. In fact, this is very interesting because, all along in the global agenda, the climate change was the number one priority. If you look now, it's actually about energy security because of Russia and Ukraine war.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sibiya. I have to leave it there for now. Of course, this is a topic that will worry many people. That is Reggie Sibiya. He's the CEO of the Fuel Retailers Association, speaking to us from Germany. Let's take you